The PlayStation 4.5 or PlayStation 4K, PlayStation Neo will be around the $500. Well, Zach, that's your bold prediction for E3 2016. I mean, we will probably hear more about this console, that rumored console. In every place we hear a new rumor, and that there will not be exclusive games, and that a new God of War will be the showcase of this system. Yeah, it will probably be at E3. I mean, if you hear so many rumors, it's like almost certain that it will show. But anyway, you think that it will be around the $500. So we are going to discuss like what are the possibilities of this system and what Sony should do to make this a success.
Yeah, certainly, certainly. So, I mean, when it comes to the Neo, obviously the improvement would be in a graphical fidelity spot, right? We would want to see better graphics. We would want to see a seamless Neo mode and then original PS4 mode, so that way people who own a PS4 and don't want to upgrade to the Neo or the 4.5 or the 4K, whatever you want to call it, they don't feel burned because all the games that they could buy for the Neo will play fine on the PlayStation 4 and vice versa. And it'll be easy for someone who buys a game on the PS4 and then maybe upgrades to a Neo later on, because they could swap on a Neo mode and it will run just fine. But one of the things that a lot of people have been rumoring is what would the hardware look like. And so the original PS4 CPU was 8 Jaguar cores at 1.6 gigahertz. The Neo CPU is rumored at 8 Jaguar cores at 2.1 gigahertz. So either an overclock or an upgraded chip that will push a lot more processing power out. And considering games are CPU oriented, and especially when it comes to consoles, that could definitely benefit it a lot as far as stabilizing frame rate and also adding on to the current graphics that the PS4 can push. And then also the PS4's original GPU was an AMD 18 CUs at 800 megahertz, and then the Neo GPU is going to be at 36 at 911 megahertz. So it's going to be a decent jump, obviously 2 times the CUs and then an increase to the megahertz. So that's going to be a good hefty boost for the console. And then we also have the memory is going to be at a higher bandwidth, but the same amount. So instead of 8 gigabytes GDDR5 at 176 gigabytes per second, we're going to see 8 gigabytes of GDDR5 at 218 gigabytes per second. So it's obviously an improvement. I think it's a fair improvement, especially in the graphics range. And so I think that in order for them to not sell at a loss, because I don't think that they need to right now, especially considering the fact that their PlayStation 4 is already doing well. This is going to be a bit more targeted towards the PlayStation VR users to get a better experience that maybe has better graphical fidelity while maintaining a good frame rate that's not going to make you motion sick. So I think that $500 makes sense. That way they could still make money off of it while selling it as a bundle, maybe at around $850 to $900 holiday with the PSVR. I just think that that's a good sort of range for it. That's not going to sort of disappoint the current PlayStation 4 user base, because they're going to see, oh, okay, this is a more expensive PlayStation 4, but I still have one that is of value, and I'm not sort of being treated as a peasant that needs to upgrade to the new big bad within the industry.
Yeah, it will be super interesting how Sony will like say, oh, this is a better PS4 than you already bought, because you said that it will focus a lot on VR, and obviously everything we talk about right now are rumors, but it might be. But I think that if you buy VR this year, and we're talking about the console crowd, I mean the PC crowd is more willing to, in my experience, upgrade for video graphics card and a better CPU and motherboard and stuff like that, while the console consumers are really much like, okay, I bought this console and I'm set for 5 years or even more. So to have them buy a Neo and the PlayStation VR, I don't know, man. That will be a super hard sell for Sony. So what I think is that the Neo will be targeted at the current PlayStation 4 users that just want a better looking game, or that it will be just future proofing, because 4K TVs are going to be a thing, but not this year, maybe not next year, but maybe the year after that. They're getting cheaper, just like the HD TV were back in the day. And yeah, to have a console that's capable of showing a 4K picture, well, it will not be a game running on 4K, but just like the PS3, for example, it just scaled to a 1080 TV while every game was running on 720p. So that will also be the case with the Neo, according to rumors. So that will be super interesting, but I think that a ton of people are now like, okay, I want to buy that VR thing, but do I also need that Neo? I'm not going to spend $800 on new Sony stuff. And I also think that 500 is too much. I mean, they saw that with the PlayStation 3. Why would they go back to such a big price point? I do think that if you compare it with the Xbox Elite that launched last year, so with that new controller that was like $150 and like a SSD HDD, like a hybrid hard drive, that was also for $500. But yeah, you got that new controller, and I don't see Sony bringing out a new controller as well. They might do that, of course, but that was like, okay, $500 for that. I can see that, but for like a system that makes your game look a little prettier but has not any exclusive content, would be super hard to think for $500 to make that the right decision. So I think that the normal PS4 will drop to $299 and that new one will be $399, and just the console $399, just like 3 years ago PS4 was at launch. Because remember, PS4 is 3 years old by the time this system will probably launch. So to have this at $400 is not really weird, because everything has evolved. Why does it need to be more expensive than the PS4 was 3 years ago? It would be, if the PS4 would not exist and would launch this year, it would also be $400 and it would probably have the same spec. So I think that $399 is a good price point. And yeah, what you say about VR, I think it's totally about VR and about them pushing 4K TVs. And it will be interesting though, because right now it's like, okay, why do I just want better frame rate and other stuff, but if the other games run worse on the last generation PS4, so the old PS4 by the time the Neo launches, they will have a big problem. And we see that with the new 3DS, and that's like the only thing you can really compare this to. So Nintendo obviously launched a new 3DS. It's like, yeah, better than the old one, but it runs the same games. It does have some exclusives, while Sony is really like, don't make any exclusive gameplay features for this Neo thing, that then everyone will lose their mind. Nintendo did it, but still some games that run on new 3DS fine are like are like terrible on the previous one, the new Legend of Zelda Hyrule Legends game.
And that's the thing too, and it's going to be very interesting to see sort of how they quality control in a sense. And I really hope that they're not pushing for 4K. Let me reiterate this again, really hope that they're not pushing for 4K, because let me tell you one thing about 4K. Even with a 980, it's hard to achieve 4K. It's really hard to achieve 4K at a decent quality, at a decent frame rate right now. It's just not really that great. And maybe with the new hardware that's coming out, I could see it sort of turning into something that's more viable. Maybe they have an AMD chip in these Neos that's going to be sort of the ones that are going to be released for PC users, or something that's more forward thinking, that's not sort of something that we already know exists and has, older technology. But if they really try to push for 4K, I think this is going to fail, especially considering a lot of people who game on consoles. I'm a PC person. I tend to know more about technology in this sense. So I look at it sort of from a technical standpoint. A lot of people on consoles, they think that they're gaming, not a lot, I say some, that own a PlayStation 4 and have a 4K TV think that they're gaming at 4K already with their 4K TVs. They're not. They're not at all. Just because it outputs and upscales a 4K does not mean you're at 4K.
Yeah,
it's
but
an upscaled image. It's just like if you scale an image up, that doesn't make that image that high quality.
Yeah, but that's the rumored how this Neo will also operate. But then it will just look better than the PS4 does now. So,
But
like I said,
I
with PS3, it was was the same. It was 720, and if you had like a full HD TV, you were playing a 720 game on a 1080 TV. And yeah, that's like how that worked. And with 4K, it's rumored to work the same.
And I don't know how great it's gonna work. It's a lot easier to go from a 720p image to a 1080p image than a 1080 up to a 4K. And so I really think that their focus should be primarily on 1080, solid frame rate, everything on Ultra that you would see on a PC, running at a great frame rate that's solid across the board. And on top of that, maybe 1440p. I know a lot of people with 1440p, not necessarily televisions, but monitors. And then if they want to upscale from 1440p to 4K, I think that's a lot more viable in terms of avoiding image degradation across the board, and making sure that the game itself is running at a good solid frame rate, because they just can't be too ambitious with this, knowing that the fact that these consumers are going to be so jaded. I mean, I kind of feel a bit jaded about this. I'm a PC user, so I'm a bit more open to it, and so I can't really imagine how normal console gamers feel and would feel that this would be so much more powerful and be able to run at 4K at a really higher frame rate, and maybe cause issues for them with their current PS4 down the road. So I think forward thinking wise, they really need to execute this greatly, or they're going to be in the same spot as they are now with the PlayStation 4, where it doesn't have as much power as maybe developers want, and so they will need to upgrade. I mean, we don't want to see a PS5 being announced in a few years after this is already announced and released. And so they really need to make sure that this is a future thinking project that's going to develop over time in a normal console cycle, instead of this sort of half console cycle that we're seeing now, with now a release of another, or a rumored release of a new system that's upgraded from the previous. So yeah, that's just sort of what I think about it. I am interested to see how they execute, how they sort of get it in people's minds, and that's why I'm so, I guess you could say, excited for the PlayStation conference, because it's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be interesting. This whole E3 is going to be interesting. Even Microsoft is going to be interesting.
Yeah, because how will Microsoft react to this PS4.5? Rumors are also suggesting that they have a new console as well. So will they just do the same thing? Will they launch an Xbox 1.5? Or will they maybe go a step further? Because Phil Spencer said in an interview that he doesn't want like a half-baked upgrade. He wants a big upgrade. So maybe they will do an Xbox 2 already, or it will be, I mean, if the Neo exists and the Xbox One is still the Xbox One, has no upgrade, what? It's like, so the games also now look better on the PS4. I mean, in some cases it already does, but with the Neo it's even more obvious. So Microsoft doesn't want that. So like you said, it will be super interesting. So one last question, or do you have to add anything to that?
I just want to add with the big leap thing that Phil Spencer said. It's kind of hard looking at it from his perspective, because he's the head of Xbox. He has to hype up things and sort of make sure people sort of feel that he's not just going to sort of be a cheapskate to him, that he's going to sort of go all the way with things. And so I think that's sort of a generic response I would expect from most CEOs or most heads of companies. But when it comes to Phil Spencer, I think that he might meet it in the sense that I wouldn't be too surprised. I know a lot of people think that we're probably crazy at this point. Oh my god, why would you think it'd be an Xbox 2? But where they've been going with sort of moving it towards more of a mini PC, what bombshell would it be if it's an Xbox 2, fully backwards compatible with the Xbox One? The Xbox One will still get support through the Xbox 2. They'll just sort of downgrade graphics and whatnot, maybe throw a normal downgrade to the resolution as they've been doing. But also all these games that we release on the new console will release on PC as well, and it'll be a huge synergy between the console and the PC, because there's so much new hardware coming out on the PC realm, like the NVIDIA 1080, 1070, and then AMD is going to have their new lineup coming soon. They have a lot of sort of room to maybe make a big leap that a lot of us don't expect, and I think that they could blow a lot of people out of the water. It just depends if they want to take a hit in their revenues due to the fact that these consoles would cost a lot more, so they would either have to lose out on a lot of money in terms of taking a loss on these sales, or they would have to sell them a lot higher And so I think it's going to be very interesting from their perspective on what they would want to do in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like they are like building towards a more PC synergy already with Quantum Break releasing on PC as well. That's just one thing they're doing. But yeah, it would be interesting if they also had like the backlog of the PC on that console. It would be like a Steam machine, but from Microsoft.
Yeah.
And probably more supported. Because the Steam machine is out, and it's like, where is it? It's nowhere, because Steam was never really behind it. Interesting. One last question for you: will you buy the PlayStation 4 Neo? And if so, or why would you buy it? And if not, when would you buy it?
I want to say that I'm in the 80% I'll buy it range, and I'll tell you why. I own a 1440p screen. Honestly, playing games upscaled to, from 1080 to 1440p with the current graphical fidelity that the PlayStation 4 can push is not really ideal. It's something that you would have to see in person, or if you own a 1440p screen, you might know what I'm talking about. But it's not as good as I would want it to be. I could definitely see a lot of games being held back. Like when I was playing the Platinum demo for Final Fantasy 15, I was kind of disappointed in the sense that everyone was hyping up its graphics. I hopped in it myself, played it on my screen, possibly because of upscaling, but also just because of the fact that the PlayStation 4 in itself is being pushed to its limits as is. There's a lot of blurring, the environments weren't that great looking, the cinematics and sort of when they zoomed into the characters looked good, but I think that with the Neo, it could definitely breathe new life into those experiences that maybe are held back a bit. And even Uncharted, as much as Uncharted is ridiculously breathtaking for how much power they have to work with the PlayStation 4, it could have been so much more. All the things that I have a little tiny gripes about with the game in terms of its graphics could have been so well executed if it was just at the specs that we're looking at rumored for the PlayStation Neo. So I think that I will end up buying it if there is a compelling reason to. Right now, my biggest gripe with the PlayStation 4 and consoles in general, especially with the fact that the Xbox One's been losing its exclusives, and the PlayStation 4 has been announcing a lot of exclusives, but it's only released Ratchet & Clank and Uncharted 4, and the rest have been remasters. There needs to be exclusives. There needs to be a reason for me to buy this console, and unless they announce a lot of release dates at E3, who knows? Would there really be a reason?
Yeah, I get your point with a lot of remasters, but we also saw Bloodborne and Until Dawn. I think people will probably say that in the comments.
Until
like,
Dawn was so small, and as much as I like that game, I beat it in 6 hours. I didn't feel compelled to play through it again. And then on top of that, with Bloodborne, I really wish I would have tried that out, but I'm not really into those types of games. But even then, that's only 4 games rather, compared to Microsoft's probably dozen by this point that's been released. And I think a lot of people don't give me enough credit with, because I said Call of Duty and Halo are kind of the same now. But a lot of people don't give me credit in the sense that I like exclusives. The only reason why I buy consoles is exclusives, right? I'm the type of person that if it's third party, if it's released on PC, I'm playing it on PC. I would rather play it on PC because I have a beefy PC and I have that luxury. So I really hope that exclusive wise, Sony really shows up at E3. They really show that they're going to be releasing these things, and they're not going to be making us sort of wait for greatness. They're going to be finally keeping the greatness moving, especially with their momentum with Uncharted 4. That game was a masterpiece, and I cannot wait to play it more.
Yeah, awesome. So for me, a quick recap on, I will probably buy it. I thought maybe the NX would launch this year, but yeah, that ship has sailed. It will now launch in March 2017, so I will probably look into that. Because I use my PS4 pretty often, and having a new system that runs better, and it just makes me happier. And I probably can get some money for my PS4, $200 maybe, and then sell it. So that would be good. And then spend $200 more on a totally new console. Okay, I'm down, but I need to be impressed as well at E3. Curious how they will show that. I mean, if they really do that comparison with, oh, here is Horizon on your PS4, your old PS4, and here's it on a Neo, and you really see like the big differences, they will screw over a ton of players. So how will they do that? it will be super interesting, like we said already. So for a ton of E3 bold predictions, you're already at the right place. Hit the subscribe button for way more E3 predictions. And also, we are doing some E3 predictions for the first party and third party developers. The Sony E3 predictions should be up now on Zach's channel, so I have put a link down in the description below. You can look forward to seeing what we think that Sony will have in store for us at E3. It will be a super interesting show indeed. It will be at the same time as every year. So on the Monday evening, 6 p.m. PT. So yeah, that's like the Los Angeles time. And you can figure out your own time. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. Let me know what you think about this PlayStation Neo in the comments below. Zach, thanks again, man.
Yeah, certainly. I really am looking forward to all these conferences. I really am so happy we're past the 2012s and 2013s of just meh releases, and we're finally getting some momentum going finally in the industry that I really, really love. So
yeah, everyone has been developing these games. They probably now understand the hardware way more than they did in 2013, 2014. So we finally see those big titles like Uncharted 4. So we want to see more of them. Thanks a lot, Shaq, again, and I'll speak to you guys next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.